It's ReeferMEDness, the podcast with Trevor and Kirk.
Kirk, we're back.
Hey, Trevor, how's it going?
Good. I really like this one. Well, I like all of them, but we got to see some people we haven't seen in a while, and they're doing some different stuff. And I like this because we have a bit of a sciencey story. We have a bit of a people pivoting with COVID story, and more about people growing cannabis. So it was an interesting group.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, Trevor, because in the last few episodes, we've kind of teased into this one. We talked to, High on Homegrown group of guys. We talked to Sue and Chase about growing. Well, in some of these episodes, I've come out and said that I have a medical license. I broke a few ribs on the bike tracks in Dauphin several months ago, and got medical cannabis to take care of the pains, aches and pains. With the medical cannabis comes the opportunity to grow. Now, we know in Manitoba, we can't grow recreationally. So because of my medical license, I had an opportunity to access homegrown cannabis. So because of being a healthcare professional, I want to understand the homegrown cannabis. And so we met Sasha, Stephanie, and Rod. We met them in HempFest, Saskatoon. We met Sasha there. Stephanie is with Keystone Labs, and Rod is with Keybox. So we actually even met Jody McDonald, who is the founder of Keystone Labs. And at that point, Jody, among other things, was selling Keybox. Yes. So HempFest company bought the Keybox, and I accessed the Keybox to find out more about about the homegrown I got access to. Now, the thing about this, Trevor, that I think is important is that we've often said that people that are using cannabis are medicating. Obviously, the reefer medicine people are, but also the reefer mellow people are also self-medicating with recreational cannabis. Well, I want to be a proponent of ensuring you understand what you're getting. So we submitted the homegrown that I had access to Keybox, and this is the story. So I guess let's sneak in and
before you do, I just okay. Interesting, since I've been talking about this episode, two things sort of came up just in people I'm talking to around town. One was somebody there. They have access to, we'll call it gray market cannabis, and they are cooking with it. And This lady's biggest concern was she has no idea how much THC is in the cannabis she's cooking. Right. So, exactly. She's making stuff. She bought a magic butter maker to make cookies, but, she said, yeah, that's all well and good, but I have no idea how strong this cannabis is. And somebody else who... Her first thought was, so could anybody sort of submit it? Because again, she knows a different, we'll call it gray market cannabis person who... It's not a gray market cannabis, it's gifting. In Canada, we're allowed to gift. We'll just, I don't want to get into all the details about how they get it, but they have some not bought at a commercial store cannabis, and they were wondering how much THC, et cetera, was in. So this episode was just really timely. Lots of people were interested.
Well, there's lots of, one of the things that happened in Christmas 2018 is a lot of people were getting cannabis for Christmas as gifts. So I'm sure there are people who are medicinally growing cannabis and they're allowed to gift it. So your friend has received gifted cannabis, possibly from a legacy grower. But you know what she can do is that there's nothing in the paperwork that Keybox provided me that asked where the cannabis came from. Yeah. So that's what I told her. So just I know I'm jumping on your story, but it was just interesting when I started telling people how many people were, oh, that's really neat. How do you do that? Well, but this is what makes this story interesting. This is why I want to tell this story, because there are people who are growing their own medicine. And in regards to my story is that I was, as it so happened, sitting outside in the summer, and a friend of ours who is a medicinal user walked by and was talking about it, and I explained to him how I had recently become a medicinal user of cannabis because of the fractured ribs, or the hurt boo-boo I had, and he was talking to me how he grows, and I said, well, and that's how I got started with it, and I said, well, what do you got? He said, well, I got some AK-47, and so I got involved with him and learning about the cannabis, and so I sent it off because I want to know what I've got, what product I have. I mean, one of the nice things about legalization of cannabis compared to the day old, where your buddy gave you your 1 finger, 2 finger, sandwich bag of weed, it's really good stuff. Well, now we know what it is. And that's what I'm encouraging people to do. If you do have opportunity to get cannabis, gifted or growing medicinally, send it away, learn about it. Because not only did we learn about the cannabinoids, Trevor, we also learned about the terpenes that are involved with the cannabis. So this business tests for cannabinoids and for terpenes. And Sasha gets into the story. So let's meet our guests.
Yeah, let's listen to Sasha.
Yeah, so I'm Sasha from HempFest Canada, and we started working with Keystone Labs way back when we started HempFest in 2015, and we've created a great relationship with them, and they always had the key box at all of our shows, and it was something that I always thought was a product that needed bigger light shine on it, and we really wanted to partner with them on something, and we found that the key box was a good place to start. We have 2 online conferences, the C45 Summit, which is coming up May 17, 18, 19, and then we also have the Growing Summit that is coming up April 26, 27, 28, and both of those are cannabis business summits. One is focused towards the QAPs of the industry, and the other one is focused towards the growers of the industry. We've moved both of those online, and HempFest is on hold right now till we're able to gather people together again. Yeah, I think it's a really great product for people to learn more and get access, easy access to a lab. They don't have to go into the lab. They don't have to do any of those things. They just get the box and send away their sample, and then they're able to learn a lot more about their grow, whether that's what terpene profiles are in there. And we all know that terpenes are becoming one of the biggest things we talk about in cannabis now is, every time you go to the store, everybody wants to know what terpenes are present because people are, shopping and growing based on terpenes now. So I think that's a really vital thing that people are starting to learn more about and want to find out what terpenes are present in their grow that they have.
So that was Sasha. All right, so let's meet Stephanie. Now, Stephanie, I don't remember meeting Stephanie in Saskatoon, Trevor.
No, and Stephanie, sorry if I've got this wrong, but I don't think Stephanie was with Keybox yet. I think Stephanie came on with Keystone Lab yet. I think she came on in sort of the media relations for one of the public facing people a little later on as Keystone was getting bigger.
Okay, so if our listeners want to go back into HempFest Saskatoon episode 36, the 4th potpourri, that's where we meet Keystone Labs, and they talk a little bit about the key box there also. Yeah,
and Jody McDonald, she's the literal founder of Keystone Labs.
Yeah, so let's listen to Stephanie.
Thank you, Kurt. Keystone Labs, we don't own the key box anymore. We did sell it to HempFest. However, we do all of the testing and we still help to promote it. It is definitely a product that we really believe in. And it is the product that brought us really close to medical growers. And Keystone learned a lot about cannabis from these type of clients, actually. So they are still near and dear to our heart and our community. And again, we help to promote the key box. And so And we test a lot of key boxes these days. There's still great interest from serious growers, as well as ACMPR growers that are now transitioning to the legal market. They will use the key box to pheno hunt or cultivar hunt as well, and it allows them to do it in a cost-effective way ahead of their licensing, really. And it also brings us in touch with these folks to have deeper conversations about how you're growing, how you're going to be growing in the GPP environment. And then we work a lot with for plant growers as well, hobby growers, whether they're indoor or outdoor, and they have their 4 plants and they want to know what's in it. And people are sometimes happily surprised or just surprised about what's in their cannabis. And I think it brings up really important questions about what you think is in your product. I don't know how many times I hear people saying that my weed absolutely has the highest THC. And, I will have a conversation with them about, well, don't be surprised if the THC isn't through the roof, but maybe you do have great weed and it's because of your terpenes, maybe the other cannabinoids like THCV. And also the key box can help growers in terms of their harvest time. When we see high CBG and lower THC, especially when a grower expects the THC to be higher, we can point to the CBG levels and saying we're not plant scientists, but from what we understand, this may be a consideration that you may have harvested early. So that's some of the information that it's really good for.
So that's kind of cool, eh? I love the fact that we learn a little bit about CBG, and I love the fact that we learn a little bit about CBN. And I think, where did we learn this, Trevor? That CBG is that is the first cannabinoid that is formed in the plant, and then that converts to THCA. And
we've heard it a couple times. Emily, the chemist, who we talked to really early on, might have mentioned it. And my memory's failing me, but I'm thinking Jody McDonald might have mentioned it as well.
Yeah, and I've been doing nothing but transcribing. We're gonna have to talk about our new webpage, but that's where I probably remember this from. So what's kind of cool is another advantage about getting your cannabis tested by a lab is you can also learn a little bit about your gardening. And it seems like I may have harvested our homegrown a little early because my CBGs were a little high. So let's learn a little bit about CBG from Rod.
Yeah, so just to talk a little bit about the biosynthetic pathway of cannabinoids. So everything starts with CBGA. Of course, that's the acid form. And then everything breaks down from that. CBG goes into THC, CB, and CBD as well. And so you need CBG to make everything. Yeah, so there's potential there for that CBGA to actually turn into THC. You probably could have left it another week, possibly, before you harvest, just to push that biosynthetic pathway into those other cannabinoids. The other one we really look for is CBN. CBN is a breakdown of THC. So if your product's getting old, it will break down to that cannabinoid. So again, that's another indicator that your cannabis is old and the THC is breaking down. So
Kirk, I liked the explanations from Rod, but you are a customer at this point. You got stuff packaged up and sent off to Keybox. How did that happen?
Okay, so yeah, I guess we should explain that. Basically, I received a square box about 2.5, 3 inches deep and about 7, 8 inches square. Very non-discreet. Very, nothing that would be worrisome. It got in the mail, and there's a couple test tubes, measuring stick. Pretty much everything was in there for me to paint by numbers. And what I had to do, which was kind of interesting, you watch a video. So they do have this posted online. Watch the video. And then what they ask you to do, and Stephanie gets into this later in the interview, you take pieces from the plant. So you take from the top of the plant, the bud, from the side of the plant, and from the bottom. Now, I grew 4 plants through that I accessed. So I tested all 4 of the plants, and you bring together I don't know what I had, a couple milligrams, and maybe about 10 milligrams from various parts of the plants, from various plants, put them into a blender and made flour out of them. And then, so I've now combined the 4 plants from various parts, and I've then take a measuring spoon, and they literally take a measuring spoon, and you watch a baker, they take and they slide it off. So it's exactly 0.1 milligram or whatever it is, teaspoon, quarter teaspoon, put it into a test tube and shake the hell out of it. And that was a big part of it. Shake, 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 and send it back to them. Now, I can't remember. I had to take that off and pour that into another test tube.
But long and the short of it, the instructions were pretty simple. Not difficult for you to do in your own house.
Not at all. Not at all. Very simple. And again, then you put it back, and they recycle a fair bit. They recycle a fair bit of what they send you. So you put it all back in the box, and they send you a return address and stamp, and it's all part of the cost. And packed it away and sent it. And about, 4 or 5 weeks. It was Christmas, of course, so it was delayed. And that was a caveat. But the results came back via email, and I'm going to post the results for people on the webpage. And so that came back. Now,
I think when we go back now into the interview, Rod's going to tell us what happened after a box like yours ends up on his bench.
Correct. Yeah. So let's listen to Rod.
So now what happens is we take that sample and we dilute it out into several different dilutions. Usually with the cannabinoids for dry flower, it's usually a 1 in 5 dilution. And then we do a 1 in 20 dilution. Then what we do is those 2 dilutions are put onto an HPLC, high pressure liquid chromatography. It basically allows us to separate and isolate the cannabinoids, first of all. Then when we run standards at different concentrations to get a standard curve, we use 5 points to get a straight line, standard curve. And then based on the quantitation or the signal of each cannabinoid, we can quantitate each cannabinoid using that technique.
Okay. And just for curiosity's sake, how long does it take to run Kirk's sample?
Kirk's sample takes 16 minutes. So the first 8 minutes, the HPLC actually flushes and cleans itself out in between each sample. And then the next 8 minutes, it runs the sample. And then once Kirk's sample's done, it will go grab another sample and continue that process until all the samples are completed in the queue. So the first part of the queue is the standards. We have 8 cannabinoids at 5 different concentrations. And then behind there, queued up, are all the samples from the key boxes.
What sort of things are they going to learn from Keybox?
Well, first of all, a lot of people, and we get a lot of calls regarding this, is the difference between THC, which is the neutral form, and THCA, which is the acid form. In dry flower, the prominent THC molecule is THCA. You're going to see a lot of that product in your dry flower. That's the form that it sits. Now, you won't get that shift from THCA to THC neutral or Delta 9, however you want to call it, with some kind of decarboxylation. Now, on that acid form, if you remember back to chemistry 30 in high school, a carboxyl group is a carbon with a double bond oxygen and an OH. When that decarboxylates, when that carboxyl group comes off the THC molecule, it comes off as CO2. So it comes off as a gas. So then that converts it to THC. That is the psychotropic molecule. THCA is not psychotropic. So when you smoke the product, the incineration of the flower will convert that from THCA to THCA or THC. So that's when you'll get that shift, that deep carboxylation, and you'll inhale the THC molecule, and that's when you get the psychotropic effect of THC. CBD and CBG are in acid form. CBC and CBN do not have an acid form.
Yeah. So what happened here now, that's kind of interesting. But what I found also interesting is they give you the THCA and the THC, of course. And now you remember how that all happens, right? The deep carboxylation of the acid form of THC. I mean, you want to explain that to our listeners, how that works?
Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to defer to Rod. Rod does an excellent job of talking about what happens when you remove that carbon, a couple oxygens off of it. Let's go back to Rod.
Sure. Okay.
There's some math that has to go on there too when we determine the total THC. And again, how I talked about when you decarboxylate THCA and that carboxyl group comes off, you actually lose weight. That carbon dioxide molecule that evaporates or leaves as a gas has weight. So you can't add THCA and THCA or THC and THCA numbers together. You have to account for that loss on the THCA molecule. So you have to multiply it by 0.877. So if you do that and then add it to the THC, that's how you get your total THC.
Okay.
And that goes the same for CBD and CBG.
So, Kirk, we talked about what was in there. We talked about the major minor cannabinoids, CBG, CBD, but the other big thing that a lot of people are interested in their cannabis is the terpenes, because depending on who you talk to, that might even be one of the keys to the entourage effect. And they each seem to have their own medicinal properties as well. So I know you were interested in Rod telling you kind of what's quote unquote normal for the amount of terpenes in it. So how about we'll let Rod talk about ranges of terpenes in someone's sample.
What should someone expect? Like, what is a normal terpene concentration in a plant? Is it usually below 1? Is it 0 point something?
That is a great question, Kirk. And I don't know the answer to that because I think each strain, each plant is totally different with the terpene profiles. So we see so many different terpene profiles. It's hard to actually answer that question because each one will have a different profile, meaning the different assortment of terpenes and a different amount. So usually what we're seeing I'm thinking of the total, anywhere from 1% up to 3% is usually the average that we're seeing of total terpenes.
So Trevor, let's just slip back into Stephanie here when she was talking about taking different samples. When I talked to you earlier about taking different samples, this is where Stephanie kind of explains that for us.
So if you were to take a bud from the top where the lights are in your room or sunlight, most naturally, it will probably have considerably more THC than the rest of the plant. Not always, but with sampling, you are trying to represent your entire batch of plants, whether they be 4 plants, 100 plants, 50 plants. And so just like in pharmaceutical or food, you want to take a fair representative sample, put those together. So that's why you're grinding it up. And then you're basically going to have a number that represents what your plants together are producing rather than just the best part of one of the plants, because that could actually give you data that is not really true to your entire batch of plants.
Right.
And if you've got 4 plants, chances are because of the small sample that you have, you're actually getting a very fair representation. With sampling, what comes into question is when you do have, say, 50 plants or 100 plants, and you're trying to test for a number that you then want to consistently deliver. So with sampling cannabis being this really dense, complex plant that has a lot of variables, and how the THC can change from the top of the plant to the bottom of the plant and from the sides of the room, and also depending on the health of a plant. So there's so many variables. So when it comes to having an accurate number, it gets harder as you increase the number of plants and as you increase essentially the batch size, because you're trying to capture an average of a living product that has many different numbers, even within one plant. So that is one of the big challenges of this industry today, and we are seeing reflected in the need for high THC, and how do you accomplish that, and how do you take a fair representative sample, and you're also following SOPs, you're following Health Canada. So there are a lot of variables to consider.
Yeah, so we're just going to roll back to Sasha now because, like we said, he's the one who kind of pivoted. You know, he started with a company that puts on conferences, which obviously is not all that viable during a pandemic, but managed to take over a sort of home test kit, the Key Box. And I was just interested how that's been going, especially during a pandemic.
Well, yeah, and he gets into now that the business is into the States. So our Southern listeners to this program, you have access to this service, Key Box service. So let's listen to Sasha talk about how his business is growing into the States.
Yeah, definitely. We've been getting a lot more interest and a lot of questions, and I think we've all seen the grow at home industry is taking off in a very big way. We just actually got the product launched in the U.S. as well, so we're available in the U.S. and Canada now, and we're seeing there's a big growing community out there, and it's only getting bigger.
That's interesting in the U.S. since it's only legal in certain states. Does that mean your testing lab has to sort of be in the same state as you are, so you don't have to mail it over state lines?
What we've done, so with the box, is once you put in your 0.1 gram sample, the sample is then less than 0.3% THC, and it is allowed to move around from state to state because then you're shipping under the legal limit there.
Can you still ship to Canada? Like, could it be shipped from Washington State to a lab in Canada?
No. So we've divided that line. We won't ship it across the international border. So there's a lab in Washington and California that services the U.S., and then obviously Keystone out of Edmonton services Canada's orders.
Intricacies I would have never thought of. Sorry, Kirk, go ahead.
So is that the hemp legislation went through that allows you now to transport across state lines, I wonder?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
we're using that wording that the THCA is below, I believe it's the THCA is below 0.3.
So what's interesting about this, Trevor, and kind of get into it, is that with the new hemp laws that are happening in the United States, which are federal laws, I think this is where Sasha is getting into the fine, and he talks about this. It's that little area where, you know, in federal America, cannabis is illegal, but hemp is not. So if they are transporting 0.03 THC
percent THC
less,
that is allowed to go over state lines because it's not cannabis, So yeah, just interesting, as I was sort of picturing that he'd have to have a literal lab in every state, which, it's not a big deal if you're talking about California or Washington, but if you've got to have a lab in each of the 50 states, that might make it a little less cost effective.
Things are starting to get traction in the US. I think our biggest challenge will be that shipping thing, because it is quite a concern, right? So also, when the box comes to you in the US, it's very important that you're making sure you're only putting that leveled off spoon, and it is 0.1 grams that you're putting in to get that right amount, and making sure that the box is clean and clear of any cannabis fragments as well, right? Because if you get a couple sprinkles of of cannabis around the box, then the box is going to smell, it's going to get opened up, and then we're going to have a problem, right? So it is very important that the box is clean and clear as well. And I think that'll be our biggest challenge in the US.
So you have 3 boxes out now, 3 services?
Correct, yes. So the new one we just added is a more accessible item. It's priced at $65. It's on sale right now, but it only tests a THC level by a color coding. So that only has an 80% efficacy. And, it's just a much cheaper way to get access to a THC profiling. And you get three tests in that box. So you can test 3 plants for $55 right now. But it's only going to give you that THC. You're not going to get the terpenes and all the other 9 cannabinoids. You're not going to find out that information. And then our other 2 boxes are our premium product, which is for flower and oil. And that's where you're going to get that full lab testing. It's going to go back to the lab. We're going to find out the terpenes, and up to 40 terpenes. So 30 in Canada terpenes, and then 40 in the US. And then I think it's 9 terpenes in Canada and 10 in the US.
All right. And that one service, actually, I can do it at home. The one with the THC only, I can do that one at home, or do I have to ship it back to you as well? Yeah,
you can do that one at home, and you'll have results in a few minutes on a color coding chart. It's kind of like testing the water of a pool or a hot tub. You're going to get a different color, and then you're going to match it up to the chart. Okay. So that's where you're going to lose accuracy, obviously, because you're looking at a color and a chart and trying to match those up. So it's not going to be as accurate, but it is much more affordable. It's roughly like $18 a plant to find out roughly the THC level.
Cool. Wrap-ups, I guess. Stephanie, any last words from you and your side of the story?
Thanks for having us. And if anybody would like to know more about testing and has questions about testing outside of the key box, they can call our office. We're always happy to chat with clients or people who are just curious. If you have terpene questions, cannabinoids, microbiology, whatever it would be. And Keystone does service the regulated market. We test for everything that Health Canada requires, and we're a GMP lab.
The one thing I really want to say is, we get a lot of usage from medical users using this, and it's really quite a positive feedback we get from those people that are using that, particularly the cancer patients. We have one particular cancer patient who uses the key box diligently. She makes her own flour, creates her own oil. And it's great when she calls us to tells us, we have quite a good relationship with her, and she calls us and lets us know how her treatments are going, how she's doing with her cancer struggle. And, the last call I had with her is she has tumors in her lung, and those are subsiding and getting smaller. And she really believes that a lot of it is to do with the with the cannabis. And so that is a nice reassuring that, we're helping out in that area. So those are real good news stories that we like working with those people and helping them out with everything.
I like good news stories. That's great.
Yeah. Sasha.
Last word to Sasha.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. And yeah, if you want to learn anything else about the Keybox, we're at keyboxlabs.com, and that's in Canada and the US. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
We'll have you on our webpage, and I'll mention the discount on the webpage as well. Appreciate it. Your results have allowed me to enjoy my cannabis that much more. Now, Trevor, I'm kind of remiss here to tell people that this company offers 3 products, right? They offer a premium flower kit for $155. It's on sale right now. They offer a rapid THC just flower and oil kit for $55. And I think this is the one he's talking about that he does at home. And then they also offer a premium oil kit. So I guess that must be the kit for people that are producing rosin at home. So they've got three services they provide people.
And the thing I liked about the we'll call it the budget kit, but it's not budget, but it literally doesn't have to be sent anywhere. You just want to know what's going on your, let's say you're in a province, you can do four plants, and you just want to have an idea about what it is you're growing. The low price kit literally lets you test their check versus a color chart, and you will have, is it as accurate as sending it back to the lab? No, but it'll give you a good ballpark idea about what on earth is in my cannabis.
Well, and this might be helpful. This might be helpful for your friend, something as simple as this, so that she knows that when she's baking with her gifted cannabis, that she has X amount of THC in it. So I think it's a quick one. For me, I really like the fact that I got the flower test kit, the premium. I really like the fact that I can look through it and see the terpenes and then smell and go, yeah, I can smell that terpene. And what's also kind of cool, and I think anybody that grows cannabis will always say that their homegrown is always the best. What's kind of cool about having an understanding of the homegrown I accessed was that it's almost like buying it from the store, but I got more information. I got 13 different cannabinoids. I've got a bunch of terpenes. I can look at it and learn. It was quite a learning experience to go through this process. And I think as I learn more about it, and hopefully if Manitoba ever becomes a recreational grow province, to learn more about each crop or people grow, you can test it. So getting back to Keybox, if you go to our webpage, Keybox is offering discount for listeners of ReeferMEDness, and the directions will be on our webpage. Speaking of our webpage,
Kirk, what do you want to say about our webpage?
Essentially, what we've done with our webpage, Trevor, is that we've created a destination. Every episode we have has its own page. It includes transcripts, pictures if we have them, the research documents that our guests are talking about. I'm hoping that the new format of our webpage will provide us more search hits because our transcripts are all over the place. You can search within the webpage now. So if you're interested in some a subject such as cooking, you can just search for cooking. It'll come up. It's a very simplistic approach. You come to the homepage, you're given 4 ways of searching. You can search by subject, by title, by guest, by affiliation. So we're trying to make our webpage a destination where people can come and find information. So what about ReeferMEDness, the podcast? I'm Kirk Nyquist. I'm the nurse.
I'm Trevor Schufeld. I'm the pharmacist. Another good one. I hope people really, really enjoy this one.
Yeah, another good one. Thanks a lot.
All right. It's Renee.